back on May 9, one of the most trusted sources for IDV news on Twitter, IDV Clue, shared something that immediately caught my attention, a teaser for the new story chapter, The Cage of Yesteryear. According to the post, this chapter would dive deeper into the Manor's lingering mysteries, hidden parts of the characters' pasts, and something that sent chills down many fans' spines, a secret tied to the Observer's agency. Now, while the exact name of the agency wasn't mentioned, many fans quickly connected the dots. A lot of us believe this mysterious group is the same organization run by Wilhelm Lamb, and the one Alice Deros is rumored to be involved in. You might have heard the name floating around, the You, No, Who, or simply YKW. This organization has quietly become one of the most fascinating pieces of Identity V's ever-expanding lore. Its roots trace back to Evelyn's backstory, but its shadow stretches even further, touching characters like Martha Bahamfiel, Alice, Sam, and yes, even Orpheus himself. So today, let's take a deep breath and piece it all together. Who are they? What do they want? And how deep does this rabbit hole go? Before we dive in, let me make one thing clear. Everything I'm about to share is based on piecing together scattered lore fragments, reading between the lines, diving into community discussions, and following the subtle hints left in-game. In short, this is a theory, not a confirmed story. It's supported by lore and what many longtime lore enthusiasts in the community believe, but nothing here has been officially confirmed by the developers. Also, I want to say thanks to those curated info for this analysis. Honorable mention goes the fellow in the IDV official Discord for providing me info and discussion. Well, without further ado, let's unravel what we know about the You-Know-Who. The very first mention of the YKW organization can be traced all the way back to Martha Bahamfiel's first letter. In it, a mysterious woman writes to Orpheus, talking about her failed attempt to shut down a certain business. She explains that now she needs a new identity, and more importantly, Orpheus's protection from the very people she once tried to take down. The letter is signed with a pseudonym, You-Know-Who, or YKW for short. When this letter first dropped back in 2020, many fans, myself included, had no idea what to make of it. The whole thing was vague. We didn't know what this business was, or who exactly YKW referred to. Honestly, I assumed it was just a clever way of saying, you already know who I am. It didn't really sound like the name of an actual organization back then. But everything changed with the release of Evelyn Mora, the Pharaoh Lady, in 2024. Her backstory, along with notes in her design files, finally gave us something solid. IKW wasn't just a pseudonym, it was the name of a real, secretive organization, and that revelation set everything in motion. Fans started going back and rereading past lore, piecing together everything we'd overlooked. As Evelyn's deduction quests and backstory made more references to the shadowy group, the bigger picture slowly began to form. Especially once we connected the dots between her story and certain NPCs like Wilhelm Lamb and Sam Bourbon, suddenly, the nature of the organization began to unfold. Now, when exactly was YKW founded? That's still unclear, but we can start estimating. We know that Alice was taken to Melbourne around the age of 14, which would have been around 1895. Since the organization was already active by then, it had to exist before that year. Then there's Evelyn's case. She trained young women, nicknamed the Pharaoh Ladies, to adopt disguises for nearly 10 years as part of YKW. According to her backstory, one of her students eventually ran away, and Evelyn was ordered to track her down. This happened after July 1899. So, if Evelyn had already been training students for 9 years by that point, then the organization must have already existed by at least 1890 to 1891, maybe even earlier. And since we don't know how long the group was active before Evelyn joined, YKW could easily date back even further. We can dig even deeper into the origins of the YKW organization by looking at Evelyn's first deduction quest. This part of the story is told from a third-person point of view and focuses on someone who would later become Evelyn's foster mother, Mistress Dara. Now, here's where things get interesting. The journal-style writing in the quest seems like it could have been written by either Evelyn herself or Wilhelm. But if we assume that Wilhelm is the one behind those entries, it opens up a whole new possibility. It would mean that Wilhelm had already taken notice of Mistress Dara's exceptional disguise skills long before Evelyn even entered the picture. If that's true, it suggests that Wilhelm had plans in motion, possibly scouting and recruiting talents, years earlier than we thought. And if he was already planning to use Dara for her abilities, then the YKW organization had to exist well before 1889, maybe even further back. In other words, this shady group has been pulling strings behind the scenes for a long time. Now that we have a better idea of how the organization came to be, let's talk about its members, starting with the leader, Wilhelm Lamb. Based on Alice's backstory, her deduction quests, and Ashes of Memory Part 2, Wilhelm is introduced as a medical researcher who are hinted to work on human experimentation with medicine. From Evelyn's first letter, we learn that he holds the title Earl of Liverpool, but the existence of the organization can also be traced anywhere. Both Martha and Evelyn refer to him in their letters as the gentleman, hinting that he is someone clearly holds significant power and influence. Putting these pieces together, Wilhelm appears to be a person of high social status, with a background in both science and nobility. At some point, he became the leader of the YKW organization. This is hinted at in Coordinator's first letter and Evelyn's trailer, where he is shown sitting at the center of a meeting room, a visual cue likely symbolizing his leadership role. It's not clear whether he founded the organization, but he definitely plays a central part in it. YKW appears to be involved in several activities, which we'll go over later, but one that stands out is espionage, since it relates directly to another key member, Evelyn Mora. Evelyn is known for her strong skills in disguise, which she used to gain opportunities and survive, as noted in her backstory. Some fans believe Wilhelm may have noticed her potential from an early age, possibly even before she officially joined the organization. While her origins are still unclear, Evelyn was raised in an orphanage, which suggests she lost her parents when she was young. The orphanage held monthly charity events attended by donors, one of whom was Mistress Dara. She didn't just donate, she also selected children to mentor. Mistress Dara had her own set of manipulation skills and was looking for someone to pass them on to. Evelyn's first letter implies that this skill set had been passed down across generations. Mistress Dara herself had once been taught by someone else. It's also mentioned that Dara ran a club and was likely the hostess of the club, which, in another term, she may have been a pharaoh lady of the club and wanted a successor for that role. For context, the term pharaoh lady comes from a card game called Pharaoh, a gambling game that was popular in the 18th and 19th centuries. Pharaoh ladies were women who hosted or played the game, often in high society settings. Based on this, it's likely that Dara was once a pharaoh lady herself and saw Evelyn as a suitable successor. Although Evelyn was described as the frailest among any other orphans, Derek noticed her ability to influence those around her. Evelyn had a way of gaining attention and subtly shaping people's reactions, something that set her apart. Her letter mentions that she was aware of how to play her role and knew how to use small actions to get what she wanted, whether it was extra food or simply drawing someone's gaze. While she may have appeared quiet and docile, she was very deliberate in her behavior. Eventually, Mistress Dara adopted Evelyn and began passing on her unique set of skills. Over time, Evelyn became a pharaoh lady in her own right. Her backstory reveals that she learned how to influence people through conversation, charm, and subtle techniques, what she called little tricks. But that training came at a cost. Evelyn lost her sense of smell and taste. Still, Derek offered her something in return: wealth, and more importantly, companionship, described as the warmth of a mentor. For a time, things were stable, but that calm wouldn't last. Behind the luxury and charm, Mistress Dara was drowning in debt, the result of a lavish lifestyle she could no longer sustain. One day, a creditor arrived, demanding repayment. Tensions escalated quickly. In the heat of the moment, Evelyn, now just stepping into adulthood, tried to protect her foster mother. In doing so, she shot the creditor, who later died. From that moment on, Evelyn became a fugitive, but she wasn't an easy one to catch. Years of training made her an expert in disguise. She slipped past authorities time and time again, leaving no trace. Still, even the best cover stories don't last forever. Eventually, Mistress Dara fell seriously ill, suffering from a lung condition. Desperate to help, Evelyn risked exposure to get her medical care. The decision cost her her freedom. According to her deduction quest, Mistress Dara was hospitalized, and Evelyn was soon arrested and imprisoned. But Evelyn's story didn't end in a prison cell. Someone powerful stepped in: Wilhelm Lamb. From her first letter, we learn that he had been watching both Evelyn and Dara for a long time. With the influence of his organization, YKW, he had a specific goal: to create a network of women trained in manipulation, disguise, and social control, just like them. In other words, he wanted his own force of pharaoh ladies. In exchange for Evelyn's freedom and a full pardon, Wilhelm made an offer. He would also provide medical care for Mistress Dara, who likely didn't have much time left. But there was one condition: both Evelyn and Dara had to train a new generation of pharaoh ladies with a term of 10 years. Without any options, Evelyn and Mistress Dara agreed. Evelyn officially became part of the YKW organization, taking on a leadership or mentorship role. Together with Dara, she trained several young women in the art of manipulation and disguise. Most of these trainees remain unnamed, but two stand out. The first is an unknown lady who would eventually take on the identity of Martha Bahamfil. The second, while not directly stated, is hinted to be Alice de Ross. Now let's turn to Alice de Ross. At first glance, Alice seemed to come from a happy, well-off background, but everything changed when a group of bandits raided her family home. The attack claimed the lives of both her father and mother, leaving Alice orphaned at just 6 years old. The trauma left her emotionally scarred and mentally unstable. With no one to care for her, she was sent far from her home in Glasgow, Scotland, to be institutionalized at the White Sand Street Asylum in Devon, England. Life at the asylum was anything but kind. Alice was subjected to harsh, often inhumane treatments, including heavy medications that did little to help her condition. She remained there for years, until around 1895, when Wilhelm Lamb took her from the asylum and brought her to Melbourne under the pretense of providing her with proper care. But Lamb had other plans. Rather than offering healing, Alice became a test subject in Lamb's experiments. From her character trailer, we learn that she was given a memory-erasing drug called mnemosyne, a compound designed to suppress or alter memories, possibly as a means of control. But her role in the YKW went beyond experimentation. Alice was eventually sent to train under Evelyn as a pharaoh lady, much like the others. This is supported by her character description, which notes her proficiency in disguise, a signature trait of those trained by Evelyn and Mistress Dara. Further hints are found in Evelyn's character trailers, both in her lore video and gameplay introduction. In both, Alice appears alongside Evelyn and the unknown lady, strongly implying that she was involved with the organization and part of their covert operations. As for the unknown lady, we don't know exactly where she came from, but there's a pattern worth noticing. Evelyn was from an orphanage when Mistress Dara took her as a pupil, and Alice was also an orphan. It's possible that the organization intentionally recruited girls from orphanages as part of their selection process, so it wouldn't be too far-fetched to think that this unnamed lady may have come from a similar background. We can't say much for sure about her full backstory, but there are clues. Based on the coordinator's second letter, some fans believe that she once took on the identity of a teacher named Margaretha Hari during her training, though what she actually did under that name remains unclear. Interestingly, bits of her skin descriptions across the game suggest that, despite being part of the organization, she was never truly loyal to it. Some skin's descriptions hint at how she saw herself as a caged bird, safe, yet trapped, and that she longed to break free even if the world outside was dangerous. According to Evelyn's backstory, by the 9th year of training, this mysterious lady had become so skilled that Evelyn herself saw her as a worthy successor. But just when everything seemed to fall into place, she vanished. No one knows exactly why, but it's widely believed that her desire for freedom and dissatisfaction with the organization played a part in her decision to betray them and disappear. Her disappearance didn't go unnoticed. Wilhelm Lamb, upon discovering her betrayal, gave Evelyn one final mission. If she wanted to stay free, she had to deal with the runaway. What exactly deal with means is never explained, whether that meant bringing her back, silencing her, or something else entirely. Wilhelm seemed to know exactly where she went. He told Evelyn that the runaway had escaped to Scotland and was hiding in the elitist manor. Trying to confirm her identity, Evelyn sent out 2 letters, one to the teacher, Margaretha Hari, and another to a female soldier named Martha Behamphil. The letter to Margaretha came back, which led Evelyn to conclude that the lady was now living under a new identity as Martha Behamphil. It's still a mystery how both the organization and elitist manor first came to know about Martha Behamphil. From what I've gathered, it seems the manor leveraged its influence to set up Martha Behamphil as an alternative identity for the unknown lady. On the other hand, the YKW also utilized their resources to track down and confirm that Martha Behamphil was indeed the unknown lady. A theory suggested that the manor deliberately used Martha Behamphil as an ID for the unknown lady to use, in order to lure Miles to join the manor game as well, since the manor potentially sees him as a good experiment subject. While there's definitely more to uncover about Martha's own story, for now, our key point about the YKW is this. The unknown lady adopted the identity of Martha and took refuge at Elitist Manor, most likely to escape Evelyn's pursuit. Years later, after Evelyn's time, Alice DeRoss also left the organization. According to her backstory, she escaped Melbourne at the age of 21 and moved to England, where she began working as a journalist. Despite her escape, she remained highly skilled in infiltration and disguise, something that can be clearly seen in Ashes of Memory 1, where she has several tools for covert operations. But it didn't end there. Her deduction quest also suggests that someone, possibly a person or a group, was spying on her. When their presence was discovered, a recommendation was made to eliminate her. What that means isn't explained. It could mean anything from surveillance to silencing her entirely. There is one theory suggesting that this was the work of the YKW, not the manor staff. After all, if Wilhelm had ordered Evelyn to deal with one escaped agent, why wouldn't he do the same with another? Aside from Evelyn, Alice, and the unknown lady who's now known as Martha, there's another pharaoh lady who appears in the story. She helps Alice investigate the manor and also shows up in Lily's backstory. Her connection to the YKW is hinted at by her outfit, a knee-length coat and bowler hat, typical of the organization's agents, used to conceal her face and identity. However, not much is known about her for now. Beyond the Pharaoh ladies, the organization also seems to be linked to people involved with the elitist manor. One of the clearest examples is Sam Bourbon. In Ashes of Memory 2, we see him working with Wilhelm Lamb during one of Alice's experiments. There's also a photograph showing him standing next to Orpheus, further deepening the mysterious connection between the YKW and the elitist manor. The full nature of that connection, however, is still unclear. From what we've pieced together so far, YKW seems to specialize in 4 very shady business areas: medical research, human experimentation, social manipulation, and espionage. With Wilhelm Lamb rumored to be one of the backers behind the Manor Games, it's not too hard to imagine that YKW has much bigger plans brewing behind the scenes. A possible theory suggests that they're aiming to build some kind of twisted pharmaceutical empire, one that thrives not just on medicine, but on control, secrecy, and manipulation. Maybe, just maybe, Wilhelm once had a noble goal to create a revolutionary medicine, but somewhere along the line, he decided he didn't just want to develop it, he wanted to monopolize it. That would explain the human experiments, the Pharaoh Lady training, as well as the spy network. After all, if you're planning to dominate an entire industry, it helps to know what your competitors are up to, or eliminate them before they become a problem. Of course, this is just a speculation. Most of this is still just theory, albeit with some interesting crumbs of evidence. If you happen to know more than I do, or have your own take on the whole thing, feel free to share it. Honestly, the more eyes we have on this mystery, the closer we might get to the full picture. Now that we've learned a bit about the organization, another question naturally comes to mind. Why does this even matter? Why should we care about this shady group in the first place? Well, first of all, it's been widely speculated that the continuation of Identity V's main storyline, Ashes of Memory, will center around this very organization, which many believe to be the YKW. So, by digging into their history now, we can start building a solid foundation, a bit of base knowledge. Instead of going into the upcoming story completely blindfolded, there are also some long-standing mysteries I'm hoping the next part of the main story will finally unravel. As I mentioned earlier, YKW seems to have some connection to people directly tied to the manor. Personally, I hope future chapters explore the true nature of that link in more detail. More importantly, understanding this organization sheds light on certain characters like Alice DeRoss. Her connection to YKW is heavily hinted at, if not outright confirmed. So if Cage of Yesteryear ends up diving into Alice's past with the organization, we won't be completely in the dark. We'll already have some context to work with. Of course, all of this is still just theory. I want to make that clear again. Everything I've shared is based on piecing together lore fragments, joining community discussions, and following the small but telling bits of evidence found in-game. It's not set in stone, but it's grounded in what we know so far. After all, Identity V's lore has always been fragmented and poetic. A story told in fragments, riddles, and symbolism. It's something we're meant to decipher ourselves, using both logic and imagination to form the bigger picture. And let's be honest, the story trickles in at a snail's pace, which means a lot of our understanding relies on speculation. But maybe that's the whole point. Maybe NetEase wants us to stay curious. Maybe the real heart of the game's story is the way it keeps the community thinking, guessing, and discussing together. And that's all I've got for now on the YKW organization. If you're curious about the real identity of Martha B. Hemphill, don't worry. I'm planning to cover her story in a future video, though maybe not in the near future. As always, feel free to drop your thoughts, ask questions, or share any context I might have missed. Thanks for watching. Silmina, signing off.